Will the Small Business Administration open the application portal where you can request an economic injury disaster loan grant of $10,000 in January? Maybe. Let's get a couple of things clear, however. The Small Business Administration never announced that they were set to open this portal where you can request a EIDL grant of $10,000 on January 17th, 2021. That rumor started on nav.com by their credit expert, Miss Jerry Detweiler. As per last week's video on this channel, I told you that Ms. Detweiler wrote on January 11, 2020, that's the date on which the article was dated, and she wrote an update dated January 5th, 2020. So they don't even know on what date they actually published this post. The president has signed the stimulus bill that includes the more funding for economic injury disaster loan grants. The next step is for the SBA to issue guidance and instructions. The SBA has indicated that a new disaster loan application portal will be available by January 17th, 2021. As a result, all these two-bit publications parroted this information. YouTubers published videos stating that the Small Business Administration announced that they are set to open the EIDL portal on where you can request this grant of $10,000 on January 17th, 2021 without verifying this information first. Anytime that I tell you that the Small Business Administration is set to do something, they've got something lined up, it comes from an official statement that they've released to me, or I see it on a SBA.gov or a .gov website. It's coming from the federal government directly. These people, they take this information that's completely unverified, and as a result, you get all these rumors, get all of this fake news. That's why this country is in the mess in which it is currently involved. That's why you get all these fake news, because people are distributing and spreading information that is not verified. There is no evidence backing this statement by Ms. Jerry Detweiler. I'm sure she's not a bad person. However, as I told you in that video that I published last week on January 14th, I asked the Small Business Administration's Regional Communications Director for Region 5, Ms. Andrea Robker, and whether this was indeed the case, whether the Small Business Administration was going to open the application portal where you can request an EIDL grant of $10,000 on January 17th, 2021. It's crazy. Everybody was like, I bet everybody stayed home, refreshing their browsers and taking a look. I'm like, don't waste your, that's why I posted all those YouTube shorts stating, look, I was at the mall. Understand? Don't waste your Sunday waiting on for this thing to open. All these people. Oh my God. Anyway, this is her response after I asked her whether indeed the SBA would be opening that portal where you can request a $10,000 grant as per nav.com. Thanks for your inquiry. We're not sure where nav.com got this information, and I'll be reaching out to Jerry next, as the targeted EIDL advanced details have not been determined. Right now, the SBA's priority is working expeditiously to identify new changes to program rules, forms, process, etc., etc. I read this to you in its entirety on one of my previous videos. As a result, now take a look at this nav.com article. Take a look at the comments section. Let's see, let me just take a look again. Okay, Mr. Jamal Singleton in the comments section for the same article writes, I wanted to know when do the portal open. Period. I heard January 17th, but it's still not on the SBA website. Ms. Detweiler responded by writing, Jamal, I update the article after a conversation with the SBA. Apparently, Ms. Robker reached out to Ms. Detweiler and told her, why are you telling people that the SBA has lined up January 17th to open the application portal for the EIDL grant? That's not the case. I never told you that. I update the article after a conversation with the SBA. They have only opened the portal for EIDL loans, not the targeted grant. We are still waiting to get instructions for the grant. Unfortunately, they were not able to provide a date. And now, if you take a look at the same article, It is now dated January 20th, 2021. Today's date. Update January 20th, 2021. The Economic Aid Act signed December 27, 2020 includes additional funding for economic injury disaster loans and grant. The article includes information about the Targeted EIDL Grant application process provided by the SBA. So she omitted that line that included January 17th at the date when the Small Business Administration would update that application portal that suggested that people could request a $10,000 grant. That was, and now I see why she had January 5th, because they have a habit on nav.com. It's not a mainstream media publication to mess with the dates. Now it's dated, this is the same URL. It's dated January 20th, 2021. This is the same web address, the same article. And she updated January 20th, 21. So she potentially updated this thing in January 5th with the January 17th release date stating the SBA told her, and the SBA did not tell her this. I don't know where she got this information from. Perhaps she listened to somebody say it that didn't verify the information either. And they didn't update the date, or they updated the date to January 11th, and that update wasn't really on the 5th. They got it all messed up anyway. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean these people are wrong. People are just not going out. I mean, if you're not a practice reporter, not a professional reporter, you don't go out and seek the evidence. On this channel, we seek the proof, ladies and gentlemen. I let you know exactly what I can substantiate. If I can't substantiate it, I am not going to tell it to you. Bottom line. I don't play that because people rely on these resources to keep their businesses afloat, to feed their families, to ultimately save their families, to save this country. So if you rely on this information, and I'm giving you false information or misleading information or unsubstantiated information, you make plans to receive money that's potentially going to be released, or there's going to be an allowance for a request for that money on a particular date, and your plans fall through the roof in your basement. Can't have that, ladies and gentlemen. We don't have that on Broad Squad, ladies and gentlemen. So, now we got another thing. Yesterday, a YouTuber with over 100,000 subscribers. I watched some of his videos, and now I'm going to question everything this guy vlogs about, because basically he held a live stream, and this is good. This is a good placement. It's good. I mean, it kind of disappoints me that he messed it up this way. However, he held a live stream with the Small Business Administration's Associate Deputy Director or Administrator, Mr. Bill Briggs, if I'm not mistaken. I don't see his name right there. I'll go ahead. Yeah, Bill Briggs. Right. So during this conversation, it was mainly in regards to the Paycheck Protection Program launch yesterday. The processing of applications were reportedly, they started yesterday. Well, they actually started prior to yesterday. However, they got everything fully ramped up. 19th was a big day for Paycheck Protection Program loans. That said, he held an FAQ, Mr. Max Mayer, with over 131 subscribers, and a number of people were asking questions about the EIDL grant. So, Mr. Toby Scammell, he is the CEO of Womply.com. Womply is a fintech organization, and they process Paycheck Protection Program loans. I'm actually partnered with them as well. Mr. Toby Scammell, during this live stream, stated that he expects the Small Business Administration to release the application portal where small business owners, applicants for the economic injury disaster loans, can request $10,000 grants in mid-February. Then, Mr. Mayer went on and released a breaking news update. The Small Business Administration will release this application portal where you can request $10,000 EIDL grants in mid-February. Consider the source, however. This is Toby Scammell. This is this gentleman right here. No disrespect to him. Like I said, I'm working with him, and I'm actually applying for the Paycheck Protection Program loan through his organization. However, he's founder and CEO of Womply. He does not directly work for the Small Business Administration for the federal government. Now, I gave this statement the benefit of the doubt because Mr. Briggs was on the live stream. So, I was like, if he didn't say anything to the contrary, perhaps that may be the case, or he is close to being right. So I went ahead and went back to my contact over the Small Business Administration, Regional Director, Ms. Ropker, and I told her, I can't thank you enough. Thanks for keeping our business owners informed. A live stream popped up. I told her about the live stream. Wamply Chief Toby Scammell at the 471 mark stated the EIDL grant would not open until mid-February. As Mr. Briggs did not say anything to the contrary, will the EIDL grant program indeed open in mid-February? Also, will Mr. Briggs be managing the distribution of EIDL grants? Because another thing, Mr. Max Mayer, he stated that Mr. Briggs was in charge of dispersing funds for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Grant Program and the Paycheck Protection Program. So I'm like, if he didn't say anything to the contrary, and he is indeed leading this effort, spearheading the disbursement of these funds, then, perhaps it may be true. This is what Ms. Robker responded me with. The date has yet to be determined. SBA's Office of Disaster Assistance will manage the grant funds, not Mr. Briggs, as he oversees SBA's Office of Capital Access. So the reason that Mr. Briggs didn't say anything is because he doesn't know. He is not spearheading this effort. That's why I go straight to the proof, straight to the horse's mouth. Don't sell me a dream, I don't sleep, in the mortal words of Rakim. So there you have it. There's no set date. So you could potentially receive this thing in January. Or you may be, or the opening of the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Grant Portal may open in January. It may also open in February or March. The SBA has not said anything to this regard. So now, the Small Business Administration, I told you last night, released guidance for the Targeted EIDL Grant Program. They sent me an email about it this morning. I refreshed the page last night, and this is what it reads. Targeted EIDL was signed into law on December 7th, and then, this is the guidance that is pursuant to the SBA is executing Section 331 of the Consolidated Appropriations Act, the disaster relief package that was signed into law back in December. So you have to operate your business in a low-income community. You have to demonstrate a 30% or greater than 30% reduction in revenue during an 8-week period after March 2nd, 2020 when compared to another 8-week period prior to March 2nd, 2020 or in 2019, and have 300 or fewer employees. They didn't say anything else in that respect. Now, a number of you are like, well, what's up with Section 332? Congress is putting up $40 billion so the Small Business Administration can continue the disbursement of EIDL grants pursuant to the CARES Act by amending the CARES Act to ensure that the Small Business Administration disperses grants of $10,000 to anybody that requests them. So that's basically on Section 32, page 864 of the CAA, the Consolidated Appropriations Act, and this is the CARES Act section that it amends to ensure. I'm not going to get too deep into the details because we have other things to cover. I also want to show you how you can qualify, how you can determine whether you qualify to receive a targeted EIDL grant under the current guidance. So you know what it does. You know that before that the CARES Act had ambiguous language, statutory language, actually gave the discretion to the Small Business Administration to disperse grants of up to $1,000 per employee. Basically, the amendment to the CARES Act strips that discretion from the Small Business Administration according to the statutory language. So, and the one thing is whether they're going to, how they're going to work it, because I went ahead and I sent another email to Ms. Robker to ask her about the situation in which most of you are involved. So basically right now, basically the way I see it, bottom line, is that under Section 332, so under the CARES Act, if you applied for an EIDL, then you have the ability to request a grant of up to $10,000. But with this amendment, You can request an EIDL grant of $10,000, and the Small Business Administration is mandated under these amendments to disperse that EIDL grant of $10,000 or $9,000 or whatever it is that you request in 21 days' time. That said, will you have to apply for the economic injury disaster loan again? Now, under the CARES Act, this is the law that gives the Small Business Administration the power to disperse multiple loans. Right here, this is Section 7B2. This is according to the CARES Act. Remember the CARES Act, right? It read, in general, during the cover period, any entity included for eligibility in subsection B, including small business concerns, private nonprofit organizations, and small agricultural cooperatives that applies for a loan under Section 7B2 of the Small Business Act. And Section 7B2 of the Small Business Act, it reads, to make such, I'll just go back to B2, except as to agricultural enterprises defined in Section 18B1 of this Act, the administration also is empowered to the extent and in such amounts as provided in advance in appropriation acts to make such loans. So they can disperse multiple loans, perhaps to multiple entities. We'll see how that plays out. However, the Small Business Administration has not as yet released rules indicating how they'll execute Section 332. So we'll see how that plays out. That said, when I went ahead, right now, if you apply for an EIDL, you get this pop-up which reads, this application portal is for EIDL loan requests only. If you're seeking to apply for the new Targeted EIDL Advanced Grant, please visit. They don't have an opportunity for you to request a grant of $10,000, so that's yet to be released. So what I've done is I went ahead and responded to Ms. Ropker, and she told me about the new rules for the Targeted EIDL Grant Program, and then she told me about the success that the Small Business Administration is already enjoying with the Paycheck Protection Program applications. And I wrote the following: thank you so much for this comprehensive update. It's an honor to be relaying this information, et cetera, et cetera. Then I said it's clear that SBA's executing Section 331. However, pursuant to Section 332, I bring that to her attention on page 864 of the CAA. Congress appropriated $40 billion or $20 billion more to fund this program. I go ahead and cite the act, basically reading that an eligible applicant requests up to $10,000 without the criteria, that the SBA must disperse grants in the amount that an eligible applicant requests up to $10,000 without the criteria listed Section 331. So even if you do not operate a business in a low-income community and you don't satisfy the rest of the criteria for the Targeted EIDL Grant Program, the SBA still has to disperse a grant of $10,000 if that's what you want. So what happens in the following scenario? That several people in my community of small business owners encounter. Small business owner with one employee, for instance, gets a $1,000 grant, does not operate his or her business in a low-income community, does not satisfy. The applicant therefore only received $1,000 per employee, but pursuant to 332, SBA must pay out $10,000. How can a business owner in the aforementioned situation request a full $10,000 grant, or the balance of the $10,000, $9,000 in this particular case, that she did not receive? Will such an applicant have to file an application for another EIDL with the option to request a $10,000 grant? If so, when will that application portal open? Or does the SBA interpret the law differently? How you can determine whether you qualify to receive a targeted EIDL grant, which is different to Section 332, that allows you to request and actually mandates that the Small Business Administration disperses a grant of $10,000 if that's what you want. A number of you in the comments section under yesterday's video wrote that you were able to determine whether you indeed operated your business in a low-income community according to the federal government pursuant to IRS code after watching my video where I walk you through the step-by-step process that you have to perform to determine whether you indeed run your business in a low-income census tract. So, click on the video you see on the screen right now and jump to the 5-minute and 41-second mark where I walk you through the process that will allow you to find out whether you are eligible to receive the $10,000 EIDL targeted grant that the Small Business Administration is in the process of dispersing right now.